if I'm hiring you as an AE and you don't care about money, I don't want to hire you.
Yeah.
The job is coin operated. A lot of people don't realize how crazy it is that half of our income is commission.
Today we have on Jack Gashi, VP of Sales at Avoca.
Sales to me, if you really kind of bring it to an elemental level, is about trust. Bringing down this facade, like you're starting from a position on a demo or on a sales call or on a meeting where they don't trust you and they think you're a huckster and you're probably pushing BS. So that's where you're starting. And the goal is like, how do I get from that to like, this guy truly trusts me? If you're a good AE, you treat a job hunt similar to making a sale. I've had a couple hires recently where after they signed, I find out they talked to half my team. I didn't introduce them. Oh yeah, like we announced this kid starting and everyone's oh yeah, I talked to that guy, I liked him. Back channeling like crazy, asking about me, what's it like to work for Jack? And I think that's a great signal. You should not be embarrassed to say, I'm a sales rep. You know, back in the day, people used to call it business development. There was a girl who I was very friendly with. Whenever someone would ask what she did, like if we'd be out at a party or something, she'd say, I work in tech. And nowadays, it's become GTM. Dude, own it. You're a slinger. You go out there and like what I said, you should be proud of it because you literally keep the lights on.
Wanted to give a shout out to one of our sponsors for this episode, Condo. Condo, think of it like Superhuman for LinkedIn. It's truly one of my favorite new tools that are out there. If you're terminally online like I am, I feel like LinkedIn I'm on a little bit too much, and you send a lot of DMs both in regular LinkedIn and Sales Nav, I'm sure your inbox is a huge mess. Again, Condo is like Superhuman for LinkedIn. Get the capabilities of hotkeys, reminders, labels, snippets, helps you move fast, stay organized, and never miss any of those important replies. For real, I've been going through my inbox about twice as fast, and it's one of my new favorite tools. If you told me I couldn't use Condo anymore, you'd have to rip it out of my cold, dead hands. Truly one of my favorite tools that I'm using. So try yourself at trycondo.com/GTM, and hope you enjoy it. Now on the episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Vibe Scaling podcast. My name is Chris Balestris, partner at Vibe Scaling. We're a go-to-market advisory, recruiting, investing, and media firm, helping seed through Series D companies grow. Vibe Scaling podcast is an intersection of go-to-market, AI, and startup topics where we interview the top go-to-market leaders at AI and SaaS companies. Hope you enjoy it. Just had a great conversation with the VP of Sales at Avoca, Jack Gashi. Jack's career, he started in 2010 at a company called Yext, cold calling 150 a day into Foursquare. Saw himself leading a team at Patient Pop and then eventually at Check, where he led a sales team for about 5.5 years. Knew at the end of that he wanted to make the move into AI sales and found his home at Avoca, one of the fastest growing AI companies that are out there. In the conversation, we talk about a couple of things that we kind of disagree on. Sales being more of an art than a science, in his words. One point that we share our disagreements with a little bit, but he had some very interesting takes on this sort of concept of the trough of disillusionment, which was newer to me, connecting a typical technology adoption curve into how that mimics a sales career, why the best reps are coin operated. And also he had some interesting life experiences separate to sales. He was one of the unfortunate folks that were at Fyre Festival. We talk about his ranking of the cheese sandwich and just being fellow New Jersey folks that went to Penn State. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was a breath of fresh air of how real Jack was, and hope you enjoy the episode. The thing that I am actually pretty jealous of as I was doing some prep before this is that I was on a panel, somehow got invited to a panel like a month ago, and I was the first one to speak, and they threw me with a fun fact. Dude, I had so much anxiety. I'm like, there's nothing fun about me.
You gotta have a camera.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not like a twin, or somebody next to me was like, oh, I just ran a marathon. I'm like, come on, like I can't do that. Yeah. But you have the ultimate fun fact. Why don't you tell the audience what yours is?
First of all, being a twin in a marathon, not fun at all.
Totally. Those are like the most common.
Yeah. I believe you're alluding to the fact that I have a canned fun fact that I was an attendee at the Fyre Festival, which is true. I ate one of the sandwiches.
What would your El Prez score 1 to 10 be on the cheese sandwich?
It was bad, but I think it was not terrible at the time. We were all starving. Like everything you saw in the documentaries is true, is how I describe it.
So you're saying Hulu and Netflix did an accurate depiction of
depiction. I was pretty butthurt I didn't get on those documentaries.
Yeah.
It was accurate to how it was on the ground. I kind of had a good experience because we got out of there on the second day. So I was only there. And sometimes people ask me, like, how much do you pay for this? Like, I wasn't one of the, trust me, I was like 28. I wasn't doing the 50K yacht package.
Right.
But the best part about it was that I'll just do one quick story. Like after it was over, we got to Miami and we had some fun in Miami, and I fly home. Next day, I'm on the phone with Chase and I'm trying to get my money back.
Right.
And, it was all over the news. I mean, my phone to this day has never blown up that much.
Right.
Everyone knew I was there, and everybody was really loving to like rag on it because it was like, who are these idiots with these influencers? It was a very hateable group. And so I'm on the phone with Chase and she's giving me like the customer support voice, and she's like, how can I help you? And I'm like, I had a fraudulent transaction. She's like giving me a couple questions. And then I just cut her off and I was like, have you seen that thing that was happening on the islands this week, like the party on the islands? And she just drops the customer success voice. She was like, you was there?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that was me. She's like, let me transfer you. And so I got my money back. So
well, I'm glad for that. I have to know, what did it teach you about B2B sales? What are 5 things about Fyre Fest?
I could give you, the outside look is not always what the inside is. So don't believe the headlines.
Yep. Well, cool. I think that's all, like, it's just funny. And and we got a bunch in common. We're fellow Penn Staters.
Yeah, that's true.
And fellow New Jersey guys now.
That's right.
And fellow sales savants that we're just going to drop some wisdom in the next.
Sales,
yeah, all things
favorite.
GTM.
I couldn't think of a better start to my Thursday than jamming out on sales with a fellow Jersey guy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, New Yorker, but you guys have adopted me because my wife is from there. And she wins that battle. But yeah, heading up sales now at one of the fastest AI native companies. VP of sales at Avoca. Why don't you just give the audience a little bit of your background into sales?
I think it's something we'll probably talk about today, but I was kind of like a typical sales entrant, which means graduated from a state school with not that good grades, had no clue what I wanted to do. You hear that line a lot when you talk to sales.
It's always that I fell into sales.
I really did. I mean, I remember I was right at 2011, right after the recession. And I was just like, I'll take any job. And I had done 1 or 2 interviews. I don't even remember, but Yext was where I got my 3rd interview. And I went into the office, and honestly, the reason I took it was like classic kind of startup. Yext at the time was kind of a darling of Silicon Alley, as they called it. And it was a huge office, and there was people playing ping pong, and everyone looked young. And I was like, I didn't know like work could look like this. And Dave Greenberger, poor guy, was like running the sales org. He's like 25. And he actually asked me to sell me this pen. So that's how cliche my sales career is.
Wow.
Yeah, it goes down to the initial question. So I took a job at Yext, and that was like a job that I say doesn't really exist anymore. The real boiler.
What do you mean by that?
Boiler room.
Okay.
We were doing 150 cold calls a day with no, auto dialer. 4 hours of talk time was the standard. We had like a little homegrown thing, kind of like a dialer that we had built. And we were selling into home services, which I'll get back to with Avoca now, but I was cold calling like plumbers and electricians and HVAC guys and selling them leads, basically. So I did that for like 2 years and just kind of learned how to sell. And I think that's BDR jobs are a little bit different now. But, I do agree with what I was told at the time, which is like, after this, you can do a lot of different things. Dave, who I mentioned, went to Foursquare. So I followed him as his first hire. And that was kind of my entry into real, like, kind of VC-backed tech company. Foursquare was pretty big at the time. Did ad sales there for a while. Eventually, one day I was like 27 and I was like way too pale and like going out too much. And I was like, I got to get out of here for a little bit. And I moved to California and did medical tech sales for a company called Patient Pop.
Was that with Justin Welch?
Yeah.
Is that he's like the godfather of LinkedIn posting or whatever. Yeah.
Justin's my guy. He's sitting on millions now upstate somewhere. But yeah, the original LinkedIn poster. At the time, he was just the VP of sales. So he hired me. I worked with him for a few years. That was fun. I'm not one of those guys, by the way, who like hates on LA. I liked LA and I love New York. I was there for about 5 years. And then after COVID, things had kind of gotten stale. And I took a job back with Dave, which is another sign of just kind of how your network really impacts you as you go through a career. Dave was taking a job at Check, which was a cybersecurity company, Israeli startup, Series B at the time. Moved back to New York, did that for 5-6 years. And then 4 or 5 months ago, joined Avoca.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that. Something we were talking about before is how you've seen maybe like the sales career evolve a little bit. One thing that we even said is like you guys hired a few like Yale grads as SDRs, but you were saying kind of, hey, my foray into sales was sell me this pen to sort of like maybe Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street a little bit. How have you seen it change in New York or just generally tech sales?
I think massive change. And I think, you probably always overstate things through your own worldview. But from when I look at where it was when I started to where it is now, that's a great way of describing it. When I started, I had a group of 10. We hired like classes at a time at Yext, and I started with 10 people, and it was a really motley crew. It's like one of those like a heist movie where they show you the name. This guy's for the vault, and this guy's the demolitions guy, and they're all kind of like assholes. I had a lot of guys who were like lax bros from Hofstra, right?
Got it.
And they were cool.
Shout out to Long Island.
Yeah, there you go.
That's my hometown.
That was like the classic archetype back then. And now like the joke I said is when I started at Avoca, I'm meeting some of the crew and I meet one of the SDRs and I'm like, where'd you go to school? He's like, I just graduated from Yale. I'm like, okay. And he's like, him and I both went there. I have like 3 or 4 Ivy Leaguers on my SDR team.
Yeah.
And if you look at the higher end too, you've seen that. Like I saw you had Raph Parker on.
Yeah.
Who was a great guest, I thought.
Yeah.
He was like an outlier back in the day, like a big...
He says this in the episode, yeah.
A lawyer who decided like law isn't for me. And you could see how that impacted his sales career. He's a very smart guy. He kind of flew up the ranks because he's, highly intelligent, just kind of ended up in tech sales. Now that kind of arbitrage game has gone away. You see people come out of college from Ivy League or pedigree schools with a 4.0 and they say like, I want to be in tech sales. I'm not falling into it.
You know why that's happening? Because I saw it at Columbia a little bit with like, but I'm curious why you think that that's happening more.
I do. I think like the word got out that you can make like mid to high 6 figures. With a good quality of life. Whereas like...
And enjoying it. You're not just like in Excel all day.
Correct. We would, I had a couple interviews recently with guys who were kind of poking their toe in from hedge funds and finance. And they, they're making 800, 900K. And you can see them kind of toying with the idea in their head, like, I can make 800 and hate my life or 500 and be pretty happy. Like, it's not a done deal anymore. And
with upside of equity too.
Sure,
if
there's other
you're
upside.
On the right. Yeah, there's
saying
there's
if you
upside,
model out the kind of not worst case, but like a middle ground if you really think you're good. And so I think that has gotten out now. My dad used to always joke with me because he was a doctor and like he moved to this country from somewhere else and that was like his ticket. And he and I used to joke because he's seeing 30 patients a day. He's got people's lives in their hand. And there was a point in my career where I like surpassed his earnings. And I'm just B2B SaaS.
Yeah.
It's a little funny, but like the market has just decided what kind of skills to reward.
Totally. It's interesting you say that. I think that you're just going to have a supply demand issue moving forward. Bunch of people at Yale who just won't have jobs in consulting, banking and law. A lot that just won't get in / more and more people aren't wanting to go into those paths. And I think just how do you not want to get in AI right now?
Yeah.
Especially early stage. And what are you supposed to do? You either build or sell the product. And that's what we're trying to build at GT MBA, candidly. We're trying to build that sort of, it's the events we throw, it's the folks that we send over. We're really looking for those sort of cerebral hustlers, but still, as you would say, a slinger, right? They still deep down have that chutzpah that they can like go for the kill when they need to like. So
I think like there's a new pool that we're drawing from. It's kind of like when like, after the dream team, like the NBA teams started grabbing overseas guys. And then over time, a trickle turned into a flood. And now like 10 of the top 20 guys in the league are not from the US.
Yeah.
It's a new pool of consultants and lawyers and physicians that 30 years ago, those were the pedigree tracks.
Totally.
Those were the highest earning tracks. And, like I remember Raph talking about his first 2 years in law and he's working like 12, 13-hour days and hating it. And I think like
that's a light day, actually.
Exactly, right. I know.
Consulting.
And so I think,
like,
and actually now with all this like 996 stuff and Avoca, I think, is really pretty hardcore, but not quite that. We do draw people from consulting and banking and stuff and law because they're like, oh, this is fine. Like, this is not that bad of a day.
It's actually a decent signaler if you see that. And you say, okay, like they willing to do that. Imagine doing that with upside and enjoying it. It's like, I know that they can grind over stuff they probably aren't going to like.
Guy who's in consulting, going to Cleveland 3 days a week for 5 months. And he comes here and I'm like, every once in a while, you got to go see a client in person and take them to dinner. Are you down with that? They're like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
It's an interesting thing. And I think it's a good thing. It's healthy for the ecosystem. And it's also, frankly, causing a lot of the guys that would have made it easily 10, 15 years ago to raise their game a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we'll talk about, I think you and I have some different opinions on like sales being like an art or a science.
We'll definitely get into that in a little bit.
The art guys are under pressure now because now you got really smart guys nipping at your heels and you can't just be like this huckster dude to just make sales today.
Totally. We have a topic on this as art versus science, and I appreciate you reading some of the articles because I'm begging for a guest to disagree with my takes.
I'll be that guy.
I just throw it out there and, no one's ever arguing with me, but I know that like there's two sides to it. The trough of the trough of disillusion was one that you kind of threw me in a little bit of like, I didn't really knew what that meant. And I thought you had a really interesting narrative. And for the folks watching this on YouTube, we'll flash up on the screen a little bit what this screenshot is. But tell us a little bit more of like this trough of disillusionment for a sales career.
Yeah.
And start off with like the technology curve.
Sure. It's something I came up with like a year or two ago for an SKO that I was presenting at. And the original reason for the graph was Gartner kind of outlining how with new technology, there's often like this kind of peak euphoria around it. We'll use AI as an example. Maybe 6 or 12 months ago, and arguably even a little bit now, there's like this kind of spike of investment and excitement. Everyone, this is going to change the world, and 20% of jobs are going to go away. And inevitably you fly way past reality and then you kind of crash down and there's the reactive spike, the pendulum comes back and you see the articles coming out like 1% of AI projects are working and they're all pilots and people kind of give up, but some people forge on. And then you sort of stabilize in like the long tail of productivity, which actually is very worthwhile. It's almost like how a lot of times you see like when an IPO happens, people think about the value from like seed to IPO. And then from IPO to 10 years later, like the value Google, you would have been better buying Google at the IPO than seed investing if you held it for 20 years. And so with sales careers, I think it mirrors that a lot. So like when you start in sales, it's often really fun. Even if you're cold calling, like you're kind of surrounded by a bunch of other 22, 23-year-olds. You're going to happy hour and you're making pretty good money for an entry-level job. Yeah. I mean, we pay our SDRs like $120. And like you can kind of spike above people who worked harder than you in college or had better grades and got into a more prestigious job. And then, there's this often cited thing or something I've seen a lot in my career, and it happened to me, is like your mid to late 20s, especially if your career doesn't just take off right away, you kind of fall into this malaise. And it's a little bit of like, I used to say the 1,000 demo stare. It's like when you've done so many of these, maybe you're still at the same job and you kind of like, you're hungover one Thursday, you look off into the distance like, is this what I was meant to do with my life?
Yeah.
Like the B2B SaaS memes, and it's like, I kind of wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, And so then you fall into the disillusionment. But if you stick with it, what you often see, there's kind of like a bifurcation in the middle of a sales career where some people stagnate and some people actually continue to excel. And then you reach like enterprise sales. Enterprise tends to be a lot more interesting. It's not as action driven. You're more like a spy or an intelligence guy. You're more like consultative. And suddenly people who had this idea of themselves as like intelligent and capable, it's a more stimulating job to me. And then the earnings follow that. So then you enter this productivity period. And, to end it, I also like, there's a guy, Scott Galloway, who talks a lot about this.
I just did my Spotify Wrapped. Prof G Pod was 4th on my list.
Yeah.
So you're speaking to me.
One of the things he talks about a lot that I really agree with is like stop romanticizing work. Like work is how you extract value and give value to the economy and get the life you want. Find your pleasures elsewhere. And, I have like people on my team who like swam competitively in college and I'll be like, do you still love to swim? And they're like, I did before it was my college job.
Eventually, any hobby
It
or
sucks
thing that you
out.
like,
Yeah,
or you like that.
I talked to a kid who wanted to be an SDR this week, and he's been in music for the first few years of his career. And I was like, why the switch? And he's like, I love music, but this is making me hate it. And so it happens everywhere. Even like, to go back to my prior example, you'll hear NBA players like they also have days where like, fuck, I got to go to work, you know? And so if you forget about all that stuff and you just turn this into, this is what I do for work and I'm good at it and I'm going to use it to make money, and then I can do woodworking or I can be a music guy in my off time. I think that's kind of the enlightenment that people.
What's great about a sales career, though, and I'm sure you would agree with this, is that it helps with other areas of life.
Sure.
What you are developing is a marketable skill.
Yeah.
Whether it's as a single man or woman in your 20s and you're trying to woo your potential partner, whether it's how to negotiate better on a contractor or something, like all these things.
I think that, like I mentioned it before, it's something you often hear when you start a sales career. These skills are going to be very transferable. They're going to be helpful to you. It's true, you know, and I think you see a lot of like good entrepreneurial people in sales and like these things kind of bleed over into everything. And if you are someone who really enjoys it, you know, there's a gamesmanship that you don't get in other industries. And, you know, for all of our complaining, and I'm sure we'll get into quotas and how the industry is set up, like there's a gamesmanship factor to that you don't get, a competitive factor.
Let's get into it now, because so like when I think of the trough, okay, why in your late 20s do you start to be like, all right, I was supposed to be an astronaut and now I'm slinging B2B SaaS? What I think ends up happening is that you're at the wrong company. You're at a company that's not winning. Or in my case, I was at Salesforce and I knew I was a pirate. I was a builder.
They'll suck it out.
And and I remember like I interviewed internally for a role that was 3 levels above me. And the hiring manager said, I want to hire you, but I can't because they won't let me set the precedent of you have to go to this different leveling. And that was like the moment that I knew. I was like, all right, I have to go early stage. I started learning more about startups and I was like, I want to sell and build. But I think what ends up happening is people get into cultures that aren't winning. And let's talk about like how you think through quota attainment versus hiring versus like Tomer. When we interviewed Tomer Cherny, VP of go-to-market at Cursor, he has a quote that's like, I want to empower my reps to charge the hill. You can't have a sales team that has had only 20% quota attainment. Actually, that's only been my experience.
Yeah.
So tell me about how you like choose an opportunity, how you think through quota attainment, how you think through the thing that's not on a spreadsheet, which is sales team morale. How do you think through that?
I mean, it's so central to everything we do because I've actually been the top guy at a struggling company. And even as the guy, like the one that was doing well, it sucks. So imagine how bad it is when you're not doing well. People like sometimes forget like a sales team can be like the beating heart of a company. If the vibe is electric and people are making sales, like marketing's having more fun. CS is usually having more fun as long as the sales are straight. Like it helps everything. If they're not even having a good time, like they're supposed to be the ones having a good time.
Right.
I think
it's almost uncomfortable when you're like the GTM adjacent roles.
Yeah, and you're like, God, these guys are depressed.
No one, it's like
Tom keeps like busting out cigs and talking about how he can't afford his mortgage.
Whiskey. I think 11 a.m.
One of the things you've talked about in your articles and that I totally agree with is like sort of the structural disadvantages of VC and sort of the growth mindset is like, you know, it's written into operating plans that you'll have 30-40% attainment. I think like RepView talks about this.
How do you push back? Let's just double click on that.
Yeah.
So you're the CFO who's in Excel and showing me this, and I'm the VP. If you're in the role, you have probably like less leverage. It's before you take the role. You almost want to do hypotheticals because like if I was a VP of sales and they told me that and I'd be like, I'm not doing that. It's going to hurt my career.
Yeah, I think you do have to do a lot of like, this was my first real, during the process with Avoca was my first real like open market VP search. And it was very important to me that when I met with founders, you can smell whether they like or dislike salespeople. It's like a binary thing. And even the ones good.
Double click on that a little bit too. So Liam Mulcahy calls this, you want sales to be a first-class citizen.
Yeah.
Tell folks how they can analyze that. Like what are the tactical things that you...
It's a bit subtle, but like I've noticed that a lot of product guys view sales as kind of like a necessary evil. They
Is it something that they say or that they give off? Like, what are the things that you can, or maybe it's just like a vibe.
I think it's a vibe. I think you can definitely look for certain tells. I mean, I just mentioned RepView before, and Ryan Walsh and those guys who've done a really good job of kind of getting a lot of this out there. But like, if you have a founder or a CEO or a CFO that doesn't want aggressive comp plans, accelerators, if they don't say things like, you can almost see it more in what they do say. They should be saying things like, I want to pay sales reps a ton of money.
Yeah.
One of our competitors just posted a LinkedIn post saying, I want to pay a sales rep $1 million this year. That's the kind of energy that you want to see from a founder. Yes, some of it is subtle, but like when I met with Tyson, who's a co-founder at Avoca, like it was just so obvious to me. He couldn't stop talking about the 2 reps he did have that were crushing it.
I love that.
And how proud he was of it. That tells you just right away the kind of foundation you're working off of. I think a lot of people would be surprised how little founders and executives that have not had sales career know about sales.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually more kind of removed than we think. And you have this idea that how could they be? It's such a central part of their organization. A lot of them really don't get it. A really classic example is like how painful it is for a top rep to leave. If a top rep leaves, and I'm talking spreadsheet pain, not culture pain. If I'm the CFO and I got a guy who's bringing in 2 million ARR and he leaves, it's an immediate hole of 2 million and a 6-month process to replace. And if I'm good at hiring, the odds of replacing that guy, first of all, with a median rep is 50-50. To find him again or her again is like 1 in 10. So do all that math, and you're basically willingly like leaving 1.5 to 2 million, if not more, on the ground. How many things happen in a company like a Series B company where it's a $2 million hole in the bucket and there's not like a 5-alarm fire? And so the immediate reaction to this, what people should be doing is like anyone who's a top guy should be paid handsomely and like aggressively promoted and kind of fawned over. They're like golden geese.
Yeah.
And you don't often see that. I think,
you know where we see this a lot and when we run a recruiting business is sometimes with the developer-focused product.
Yes.
Or something with a strong PLG motion, because a founder might say, I want to pay them a little bit less because this product kind of sells itself.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reps want to go somewhere where, it's first class citizen, but they also just have like the upside of earnings. And that's the trade-off that they feel they have to make maybe at a developer-focused product.
There's a guy, Ed Sim, who's a VC, and he does a newsletter called What's Hot in Enterprise Tech. I love his newsletter. Shout out to Ed. He has no idea who I am. And he has a phrase he always brings up in these things, and it says, all roads lead back to steak dinners. And the beginning of that phrase was the idea that everybody wants to be PLG. But eventually, even the most PLG companies you can think of ended up with an army of 100 enterprise AEs.
Yeah.
They all get there eventually. And it's kind of going back to our idea here. You're either getting there enthusiastically, like, hey, let's go hire a bunch of reps. I wonder how much more money we could make if we had people out there pushing this product, versus reluctantly, like, the dream of PLG wasn't quite there. I guess we got to bring in those lacrosse guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring in the Hofstra bros.
Yeah, bring in the Hofstra bros.
A couple.
Ring the bugle.
Let's dive into the steak dinner thing, because I know you're reading my article, and we differ a little bit in a take on this. But first off, best steakhouse in New York. What comes to mind?
I'm a Keen's guy.
That is the correct answer. Keen's is the. I'm happy you said that, and sounds like we have one of those in the future for you and I. So.
I just went there 2 weeks ago, and
it's incredible.
We're doing an end-of-year dinner for some of our guys who kind of blew out their number this year. So Keen's is definitely my pick.
The vibe of Keen's is great. You have like the pipes of the 1920s Yankees on the ceilings, and it's a bunch of my friends when Billions was big, that when they would come here from Philly, my Penn State friends, I got to eat at Keen's. Like Axe was there,
Axe.
But yeah, so I get it. I think it's funny. Bardia, who we wrote an article on, he's the VP of sales at Fireworks. And he wrote an article as like death to the steak dinner. He wrote this in about 2021. Now, Bardia's sold developer tooling and a lot of this bottom-up PLG, where he was like, we don't need to necessarily like wine and dine as much in the beginning of the sales process. I feel like everyone's kind of saying the same thing a little bit, but it goes back to this science versus art.
Yeah.
And this was generally, I quoted him in my article, and then also like the steak dinner concept of this. And I'm curious, like, do you think that sales is more of a science or an art generally?
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely be the counter to that. I'm an art guy. I think the shift we previously talked about and just the types of people in sales naturally was going to lead this way because you have more sciencey type people in sales now. You're more one of
Yeah,
us.
you got all the Yale people now.
Yeah,
that
you're
are
one
be
of us.
super,
So you're like a bit of a turncoat here. But
yeah.
the what I come back to is like sales to me, if you really kind of bring it to an elemental level, is about trust. And I actually think today, for my colleagues and friends that are selling AI, and you can go back to other kind of like new technologies, new waves that come about, the trust meter is even ramped up even more. So trust is just the idea, like, again, just because Raf was on and I'm top of mind from listening to it, a lot of what he talked about, which I loved, was like kind of bringing down this facade, like you're starting from a position on a demo or on a sales call or on a meeting where they don't trust you and they think you're a huckster and you're probably pushing BS. And there's been plenty of BS companies in the last 10, 15 years. So that's where you're starting. And the goal is like, how do I get from that to like, this guy truly trusts me? And that's why you hear a lot of people, sales VPs and trainers and stuff, talk about getting on a texting basis with your champions.
Totally.
Like, that's a sign that they trust you. They're letting you into their phone. And that's why people always try and get out and see people in person. Now, certain industries, that's actually quite difficult. It's one of the things I love about the shift I made because now Avoca sells into home services. And I was selling to cybersecurity people and marketing people and Fortune 1000 before. It was very difficult to get someone to go to a ball game with me. I don't care how much I was willing to spend. I'll take you to Keen's tonight. People are like, no thanks, but I'll see you Tuesday on the Zoom. That makes it really difficult. Like you're putting yourself in a tough spot by trying to build trust through a screen. And now, just kind of by nature of the industry I'm in, it's a very kind of handshake industry. It's a face-to-face industry historically. If you say like, can I come out to Denver with one of my SDRs and just bring in some bagels? They're like, come on over. We'd love to meet you.
Would I be able to sell any software dressed like this on a Zoom? Be like, get this guy the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
No.
But I
it's
think
a little bit, it's like the Midwest, like it's like the PE-backed like buyer a little bit. Yeah.
And to go back to the science and art thing, like I'm not going to say that having some scientific elements is not smart. But I think it's a seductive idea that we can just like figure out the unlock. I think like sequencing was an example of this. Maybe if we just write the right 5-step email and it's kind of perfect and we tweak it and we hit go, sales will just rain in from the ceiling. And it proved out maybe for a couple years when people didn't know what was happening. And then it quickly died. And every time these kind of fads die, you come back to Sarah or Chad at the steak dinner with you, gaining your trust. That's kind of where I think people just forget that it's a trust thing. And if you're all science, you're resting a lot on like the numbers and the case studies. And I think people really just don't trust that stuff anymore.
Yeah. All right. So here's where I'll push you back because I disagree. I think that sales is 70% science and 30% art of at least getting at least until the midway through later stages of the sales funnel. And then of course it's trust. And then I think it flips to more of an art. But the thing that gets you through the door is more of the science.
Yeah.
I say this because I always think of what is one more than the other. Take the extremes of both examples.
Yeah.
So let's say you're the most charming. You can cook the best ribeye or you know the best spot in town. But your product doesn't really solve business challenges. Numbers,
you're screwed.
Increase revenue or decrease cost or reduce risk.
Yeah.
Those to me are numbers.
Yeah.
And then can I connect that? And can I run somewhat of a linear process, meaning like it be somewhat structured?
Yeah.
I define science as numbers and structure. And I look at the art or the steak dinner as the cherry on top of the sundae that is sales, and the sundae being, can you solve my business problems, which tie down to a revenue or a cost number a lot of times. And that's why like I see it as that. Eventually, now, if you can be, it's guys like Raf who are weapons because he can do both the art and the science. And it's like, great. And, if you are charming, but your product sucks, you're not going to sell anything. I've sold products from people I don't like before because I'm selfish and I want to solve my own business problems. So
so let me give you the other extreme. Why do we even have salespeople if all you need is a good product that increases revenue and decreases costs? You could just have Tom, the engineer, stuttering through a presentation and these numbers are really impressive. We're going to buy.
Sure. I think this is the cherry on top of it. In my last company, I sold to developers where they did buy that way. You don't. It really depends on what it is. I think on what you guys sell, and this is where like, it's just all generalizations are not the right. It's just like there's
it's somewhere in the
nuance.
middle, I'm sure.
And I think that like in what you guys sell versus what my experience was selling developer tooling at times was, we had to be a little bit, we actually had to lower our energy level.
Yeah, I could see that.
And so it depends. And it's like, but you can that's why like when we do this hiring for these teams, whether it's you all or we're selling to some, like we've had people be like, they're actually too energetic.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to some sales leaders, but it's not, one's not right or wrong. It's truly, Raf was even saying this on the podcast where when he was at Newfront, he would hire the Hofstra lacrosse player, but the buyer was a 50, 60-year-old ripping cigs, kind of like, I'll never buy from you because you don't look like me.
Yeah.
And it's not that like one's right or the other, it's just contextual.
Sure. And I agree with that. I think like you kind of know, you got to know what you're good at.
Yeah.
And certain industries play in certain ways. When I kind of lionize that quote, and I think even what Ed means with it is not, it kind of gets blown into an out of proportion version of just like, for example, nobody hires people for their Rolodex anymore. That doesn't work. You can't just come to me from a competitor with 5 names and they'll switch from them to me because they like you. Doesn't happen. But it's the trust at the end of the day is what I'm saying. Someone won't break bread with you if they don't trust you. And even if they do and they don't in the beginning, the goal of that is to get to a point where they do. You can gain trust, what I'll acknowledge, in different ways. And with different personas, it's different. So a dev might look for really ironclad metrics or better kind of contextual numbers to gain trust, or product knowledge, and I might surprise you that I'm actually very big on reps understanding the product that they're selling. I think that's something like Jason Lemkin talks about this a lot. If you want to be a good sales rep, understand the product cold. It's often why the first rep at a company ends up being pretty good because they have to know it like in their bones.
Yep.
That's why founders sell really well because they know every single thing. Even if you're not getting a ton of technical questions, when one of them comes up and you just have like a crisp response, that's a trust building exercise versus it's so clear to me. If I listen to, gong calls or whatever, and I see a rep that kind of gets a question they don't know the answer to, I try and coach people to always, the best thing if you don't know is to just admit it. I actually don't know the answer to that. I'll get back to you though tomorrow. I'm writing it down. I'm going to talk to the engineers about it. The worst thing you can do is like stammer and kind of a bunch of words. You go off on a 2-minute tangent. And you can see the guy I don't trust you anymore, dude. Like you're just lying here.
All right. I want to take a quick pause this episode to tell you again about Condo. If you're like me, I'm on LinkedIn way too much. Sending DMs all day. Your inbox is probably a mess. Right now, go check out Condo. It's like Superhuman, but for LinkedIn. So with that, you get hotkeys, reminders, labels, snippets, all the stuff that you need to do to move fast and not lose track of important convos. I've been cranking through my DMs twice as fast now since I started using it. So try condo.com/GTM for a free month. And now back to the episode. So you had a great career or run at Check.
Mm-hmm.
Or either 5 years or
almost 6.
5.5, 6. And you're probably getting reached out to by a ton of recruiters, by a ton of folks. Mm-hmm. You also have to be a little bit AI curious at that point.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm looking for my next thing. How did you start to evaluate that? Tell us more on the decision of like why Avoca and what you guys are trying to build there. I'd love to like learn more. And for the folks, like how you would evaluate this, because there's people that listen and that follow the blog that are VPs as well as AEs. Maybe if this differs at all, like how did you think through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of why, when you're at anywhere for a while, I think like kind of, you always want to fight like entropy in your career. You want to like keep moving a little bit. And I just felt like my time had come. It was a little bit stale. I was very comfortable is what I'll say. Check, great place to work. And I'm not saying it was just like kind of everyone kicking their feet up, but it was good work-life balance. Went to the office 2 days a week. I'd been there a while, so there's like inherent comfort there. Been promoted and stuff. But I kind of was like looking out the rainy window and like hearing these war stories from AI and like all this kind of run and gun and like this gold rush going on. So I was very curious about
As you would say slingers. You heard people
slingers like, dude, you don't see the money coming in these places. I heard about it. So I was, I'm a degenerate at heart and I wanted to get in that. So I was only looking at AI native companies, and then Avoca, like I said before, it really kind of checked the box for me of an industry that's fun. Mm-hmm. I knew that from Yext. The only difference was at Yext.
Yeah, back to your plummet. You were ripping
cold calls with plumbers, and like those guys were fun to talk to. They're like salt of the earth people. They're not the CFO who's like, absolutely, I won't give you my cell phone. And actually, I think this is BS. They're just more like down to earth people.
Yeah.
It's Main Street versus Wall Street kind of a thing. And the other side of it was I was able to take cutting edge AI, real AI, not like pretending to be AI, and bringing it to that industry. So I really like that synergy for a personal level, for the fun, but also because like, would I have taken a job at Cursor? Sure. But like, I kind of wanted to get away from like selling tech to tech. It's very dry, if you ask me. And so selling tech to real people was really an interesting thing. In terms of like what we're doing, so, Avoca's initial wedge was basically an AI voice platform. So answering the phone and actually being able to book jobs for these businesses. That was YC days when they started. Now we have kind of a full AI suite for a home service business. So it can like book the job, reschedule, all the stuff that these guys don't really want to do. And the one thing I'll say that's nice about it, maybe a little plug, and part of the reason we work with you guys, we have a really wide range of sales that we can make. Like probably our minimum is maybe around 20K, like an SMB sale. And then it goes up into the mid millions annually.
Yeah.
And that means I have a really wide palette of AEs. Like you and I actually just worked on one that's joining us who's 2-3 years of experience, so I think is going to be great. And then
she's a killer.
She is a killer.
Yeah.
Shout out to Christina.
Yeah.
And then I also made a hire recently who has 15 years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll be focusing on like the whale hunting game. I think that's a really nice place to be for a leader because you have so much career development you can offer people.
Totally.
We just promoted Liam, one of our SDRs, into an AE position. That was our first promotion since I had been there. Everybody's super excited for him. I couldn't do that at Check because there was no mid to SMB. It was just enterprise.
Yeah.
So SDRs were like a rental. And like I told them openly, like after 2 years, you're going to come to me one day and say, I got a commercial AE job. And I'm going to say, congrats, dude. Like, great run. Here we have a really nice kind of slope where you can slot in at any level and see the future ahead of you.
That's great. And that's why we love working with you guys is because as long as they hit like the talent bar, we can kind of throw them into your web and then you adjust them accordingly. And that's really great for us because then we don't have to like pinpoint as much. And it's been great working with you guys. I think like, I already have like the LinkedIn post in my head of when Christina starts, and hopefully we get a lot of others for you. But it's like Kaylin being an early investor, which is one of our partners. So it's part of our investing arm. Mm-hmm. This is our media arm where we want to give a voice to sales leaders like yourself. And then the recruiting arm where it's like BDRs, SDRs, sales, AEs, and then sales leaders, which we're moving into now in SF or New York.
And I'd love to give you guys some flowers here because it's also like a strategic discussion. Like, I had never worked with orgs like yours before. We always had internal recruiters, and it was viewed as like this kind of extravagance, to pay fees like that. And I think today, my central challenge is we're scaling rapidly. And as you go from 5 or 10 reps to 20 or 30, the big risk is the talent bar drops. And with outside firms like yours, when I get an introduction from you on Slack or whatever, I already know there's a base level of quality there.
Totally.
And now I'm looking for fit.
Totally.
Cultural fit. Can they sell what we sell? And on the other side, I've already referred a few friends to orgs like yours. It's just such a good way to know like what's actually happening on the ground. So I'll use Avoca as an example. Some of our stuff that's really exciting has not even hit the airwaves yet. It's not really announced. And only when I talk to people or when you talk to them are they, oh shit, these guys are going somewhere. And so you would never know if you were just looking on LinkedIn to apply. Some of our jobs,
we are the middle ground. We sell it on your behalf.
It's a curator.
It's the menu. You said it's like the menu.
It's the menu.
And that's exactly what we do. And another thing, we'll get inbound from companies that are like not sure that they want to use us. And I said, well, why is that? They're like, well, can't we just send 20 to, these are the top 20 firms we want to poach from. Can't we just do it with all AEs? I'm like, have you ever looked at an AE's inbox?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. And I'm like, why are they going to, like, what we do is we whisper into their ears and then they come to us when they are ready. And we also like curate that experience for them based on, are they technical? Are they this deal size? Are they, and we shift them into that and we sell. That's the thing. We sell on the behalf of like you all. And honestly, that's why we only want to work with on the recruiting side. Maybe it's like 10 or 15 companies at a time because we wanted to be companies like yours where I can pull. Christina was not looking.
Yeah.
She wasn't looking at all. She was killing it at 6 Sense. And we want that backing to be like, hey, you got to take this call. I'm not telling you to take the offer.
Yeah,
but take the call.
Yeah.
And that's what we push for. And it's hard. And that's why we say no to 80% of our inbound because it's a lot of playing hot potato with sales. It's a founder that says like, all right, I want top talent. Okay, cool. Tell me more. Like, do you have any pipeline? Like, well, we have zero pipeline.
Yeah.
But this person, I go, why is someone going to want to take this?
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's sales job? I'm like, you guys need to like, you want the best rep? Make an environment where the best rep has to say yes to your opportunity.
Yeah.
And you guys get that better than anyone.
Yeah. And I know the other companies you work with and they're all great. Like that's part of the signal to me too, is like, oh, these are all companies I'd be interested in as well. And I think like, again, when you go back to the CFO way of looking at it and some of those numbers I said before, like making a bad hire is really more painful than people think. And I'm talking just on the spreadsheet. When you then get into cultural aspects and when you have to fire someone and do they cause a ruckus on the way out and all the leads that you sent them during that time, paying to get a much higher chance of success on that hire, it papers out 10 times out of 10, if you ask me.
Cool.
The quality's
good to know we need to be raising our rates. Thank you for that, that confirmation. I'm going to send that clip to Caitlin and be like, hey, man, we gotta start a little bit higher.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I agree with you. We were a little bit biased in that way, but sometimes
I'm sure you are.
We, talk to somebody and then they go through it. Sometimes they have to let the market tell them something different. And maybe they find that person on their own. And if you can do that, that's why sometimes with a head of sales that comes in, for those first couple hires, sometimes they just bring their people in.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course, for that,
I
just
think
like
the hard thing for salespeople is often to just understand what they're getting into when they interview. So let's look at this from the AE's perspective. What would I do if I'm an AE looking for a new job? I'm going to probably check rep view.
Well, can I push you back on that?
Yeah.
A lot of people want to join seed through Series B AI natives, and they're not on rep view yet.
Correct. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
RepView is fine if you want to get a look at how's it been at Datadog last 6 months.
Yeah, okay. I got it. All right.
You have 1,000 reviews. RepView has a glaring gap for early stage companies. I don't think we even have a Glassdoor page yet.
Yeah.
And so how do you understand where the hot new stuff is? How do you understand what cultures you'll fit into? It's really difficult. If you're a good AE, you treat a job hunt similar to making a sale.
Yeah.
I've had a couple hires recently where after they signed, I find out they talked to half my team. I didn't introduce them. Oh yeah, like we announced this kid starting and everyone's in, oh yeah, I talked to that guy. I liked him. I'm like, when'd you talk to him?
Christina did that. She asked me for intros into the org.
Back channeling like crazy, asking about me. What's it like to work for Jack? And I think that's a great signal. Now, if you're looking at a leadership position, it's even more important. Avoca was a connection that I had through one of their major investors. It wasn't just like out there looking in the wind. They didn't have the job listed. You know. It's like the cool restaurants in New York are not the ones that have 1,000 Yelp reviews. It's the ones that just came out and your buddy's got to know the guy to get you in.
Any of those come to mind in New York that I need
I'm out of
the
scene now, man. I'm 37.
Yeah, got it. You're like, I'm just hitting keys.
I'm just a suburban guy
faithful.
now.
Yeah. Shout out to Jersey. But tell me like a little bit more of something that we had chatted about. I guess one thing I actually want to ask you.
Sure.
Are the best sales reps coin operated?
Yeah.
They are?
No. I remember you bringing this up. I think like that's another thing. There's some tropes on like LinkedIn these days.
Yeah, you're all up in commenting.
I try and throw out some spicy comments because it gets really lame to me sometimes. Like LinkedIn is always like, it's kind of over-indexed towards like, it's like a guy who lives in Provo, Utah, and he's like, sales reps should live off their base and invest the rest into 401k and storage unit facilities, and there's kind of like this kind of Puritan sales rep that's very popular on LinkedIn. And I think it's just a over-exaggeration kind of reaction to the coin-operated idea. But like on a real basic level, if I'm hiring you as an AE and you don't care about money, I don't want to hire you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways that can show up. You don't need to be a total like full-on degenerate, but like I'd rather you care a lot about money than a little. The job is coin operated. It's a lot of people don't realize how crazy it is that half of our income is commission. Like if you are a marketing person having a bad month, it's okay. I mean, I'm not going to say that those jobs don't get evaluated. You don't have like end of year reviews and stuff.
Right.
But like, especially guys, to go back to that Utah comment, how many of these salespeople reading this are living in the Lower East Side with 2 roommates And they literally need to hit their quota to like, if they don't hit their quota, it's not like, oh, I didn't save money this month. It's like, I'm eating ramen for a couple of weeks. You know, I live in the Mission, dude. Like my rent is $4,000. I need to do well,
Right.
you know? And so you have to be coin operated to a degree. I think a lot of people are. And, you know, the way the comp plans are designed intentionally, it should be kind of a ladder. I get way more ROI from a rep that hits 4 million in revenue, and I pay them a lot of money than if everybody's hitting goal. That's just a fact of how it works.
The article I wrote was, all right, first defining what coin operator is. I put the screenshot of the sales learning curve article from Harvard Business Review or something where it's just like the natural progression of when a company starts out to when they're like, you know, Series D or like later stage. And I define coin operating more so as like, if I was to ask you what motivates you in an interview.
I don't mind if they say money.
It's really interesting because I would not hire somebody if they said that. And the main reason, it's similar to, I don't want to get too broy with this, but you know, part of what I want this podcast to be is a real talk, almost my first million meets sales.
Sure.
It's similar to like if I had a daughter one day and I asked her potential mate and I said, what is it that you're looking for in a partner? And they were like, I want them to be hot.
Yeah.
I'd be like, it's like the meme of like the devil showing up on the screen. It's just like, you have precisely 10 seconds to get the F out of my house.
Can I give you...
And that's how I view it. Of course, being physically attracted to a partner is important.
Pretending
in fact,
that's not true is just like we're lying to ourselves.
It's more of like, what's the inputs? And that is what, now a lot of this is semantics. I think deep down, like you don't want somebody that's too salesy, that's like unpolished and like bad at sales, because that's like, you can't be good at sales. In most B2B SaaS or AI sales. But it's more so like, I want somebody, especially in the early stage, to be motivated by building and of course selling. If you are at a sales company and you're making no money, you should leave. So, but it's the way in which I like frame the inputs and the motivators that like how I would build out a team. But then again, we do disagree on this stuff. Because like to me, you know, and it's maybe like a kind of a generalization, but I view a sales pit, and I love the pit. You know, we have like kind of gleaming corner offices in our new office here in Union Square, and I'm never in there because I like to be in there with the trenches, and you know, it's guys ripping in
zins.
The trenches with the soldiers.
The soldiers ripping zins, doing a few cold calls, high-fiving when they get a sale, and like, you know, the hot thing. That's kind of where I'm coming from is like, you know, we all sit back and clap when someone's like, I'd like to join this company to build something great. And I'm like, dude, you want to make money, you know? And someone's like, what do you like about your partner? It's like, the way she like, you know, talks is so and you know, deep down, it's like, you think she's hot.
You're almost saying it like, they're not saying the thing that was the prerequisite.
The truth.
To actually like the prerequisite in that was, hey, I was physically attracted. Or
would you have
I knew I was going to make
date?
money. I've already assessed that.
Left?
Now it's like it's almost like, I don't know, virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling is a good way of putting it.
It's almost like, let me use we did a study here. I'm going to use my MBA brain right now. The whole
go for it
is in one of our classes. We talked about how like when people in business school did a study in what they wanted in a career, none of them said money. The only reason why that was is because all the post-MBA jobs paid well. So they knew that like the C of what they were already... it was assumed. If that was taken out, they would have had to have put that. Correct. So I think you do bring up a good point, but you go on.
Well, I was going to say, you see this also, this is another thing I think I actually chirped at one of your LinkedIn posts, because you see it's been around forever. There's like some people, particularly the more kind of intelligentsia of the sales crowd, that really contort themselves to call themselves anything but a sales rep.
All right, this is the post was...
You were talking about
Alex
the trend
Kramer,
of GTM.
Alex Kramer, SVP or CRO of Gong, posted, shout out to Alex, and he was like, why is everybody at AI companies calling this something GTM? And it sounds pretentious.
Correct.
And I then wrote an article on the GTM rebranding, me saying I loved it. And you were like, dude, give me your, like you said some comment that was like, give me your, I'm a gunslinger.
Like I think, you know, back in the day, people used to call it business development. It's like, if you talk to them, it's like, all right, dude, you're a sales rep. And then, you know, there was a girl who I was very friendly with at Foursquare that I worked with. And whenever someone would ask what she did, like if we'd be out at a party or something, she'd say, I work in tech. It's like, I know you work in tech, but like you're a sales rep. And nowadays it's become GTM. You know, actually, I'm going to make all my team change it because At Avoca, if you look now, all of our AEs have GTM.
I should have put that in our agreement.
It's like the shroud of Turin. Like, you don't know what I do. Am I SDR and I'm AE? You don't know.
I'm not just a sales rep. No. I'm a GTM.
It's like, dude, own it. You're a slinger.
Yeah.
You go out there and like what I said on that post is like, you should be proud of it because you literally keep the lights on. I had a former CEO who used to defend sales reps this way. And he's like, we're all out of a job if they don't do well. They are extremely important. They're on the front lines. They're the first person that any of our customers talk to. It's an important job.
Yeah.
You should not be embarrassed to say, I'm a sales rep.
No.
I'm an account executive.
Yeah.
We already gave it a little flowery title.
We did because I think I was like reading an article, I think in the 80s or something. It was like rebranded from sales rep to AE.
AE was the original
account executive.
The original sin.
We rebranded.
Yeah.
Gen X was like, listen, I'm sure there'll be a new rebrand for like Gen Alpha or Gen Z. It's like, okay, what's going to go from GTM to like something else?
Let's stick with AE.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's fair. Just some like rapid fire questions is like, what's something that like worked in the 2010s that's completely dead right now? Is there like one or two things that come to mind?
I mean, even you said 2010, but I could go back to 2023 and tell you things that don't work.
Yeah, however you want to take it.
I think like it's been interesting making the shift into AI and to how that has changed everything in terms of how we operate. I think like the recent discussions we've been having as we scale are things around like kind of more RevOps type stuff. Outbound engine, what does it look like? I do happen to work in an industry, and I think the SDR role is kind of making a little bit of a comeback. The last couple of years, you've seen like people saying it's going away, and a lot of this can be automated or it's growth. You see GTM engineers, like we can just clay our way into SDRs. I do work in an industry where SDR is still like extremely valuable because it's a phone-based industry. And I acknowledge that that's a bit of a throwback. But I think like we touched on it briefly before, there's like sort of been a backlash to automation. And to use the trough of disillusionment, I think for a second, people thought AI could make outbound super personalized. Now you probably get these, I get these. You can tell right away when an email has been automated.
Totally.
You know, I had a rep who just got promoted recently, and he wrote like a summary email to the executive, and it was like 3 paragraphs long, and it had certain phrases were bolded. And I sat him down. I was like, this is a combo that's very common with like early stage reps. You're doing too much. When this guy emails, like the guy you're talking to, the exec, it's like one line with like 4 words and 2 of them are misspelled and it says like sent from my iPad.
Oh.
You know, that's how execs talk. And so we have this idea that we want to kind of puff our chests out and look a certain way. Automation to me has been that. That's the story. It's difficult to automate in a way that seems human still. That might change, but it's been kind of a promise now for like 10 years. I still think if I'm like an early career rep and I'm trying to outbound, I'm better off writing 20 really personal kind of sniper fire emails versus the allure of some sort of AI automation engine that's going to kind of get it done for me. And I am talking a bit more about like mid-market to enterprise type sales, but I'm a big believer of that. And I push it at our company too. Like our water cannon is cold calls. When we want to not do the cold call water cannon, I want you to research and send a sniper shot.
Hand rolled. I think that like, kudos to you for setting that culture, because when I was at Celonis, it was like put everybody in sales loft cadences, and you knew it didn't work, and like they were like, no, if you're not, it's like, hey, why are we like not evaluating effectiveness and not just like moving the ball, thinking that we're just because we're busy.
And you know, when you have a product that people want, everything gets easier. That's another thing with AI is like I talk about this a lot. We're doing really well. We're also surfing the front end of a wave. I've actually never been on the front end of a wave. I wasn't there when CRM came out. And I imagine it was quite similar. I wasn't at a cloud company when people were migrating off of on-prem. Those guys are all retired now.
Yeah.
That's happening in AI. Like it's crazy the pull that we have. So when you have a product that people really want, it's kind of counterintuitive, but like you might think, oh, we just need to buckshot, automate, sales loft, get to everybody, fish with a huge net. I don't agree because your hit rate is so high on the sniper shots. If you have a 50K sale you can make or a 200K sale you can make, you're telling me that's not worth half of your day just catering some emails. And by the time that email goes out, you're referencing a customer that lives nearby. You already went on their website. You could give 2-3 lines. I mean, that's going back to the art versus science thing. But you could argue that's a science too. Is like, how do you train people to do that in a really repeatable way that, it's not going to be 100 or 500 a day. You can do that at scale.
Yeah.
It just takes a little effort. But the other day I walked by the desk of one of my AEs, Jeremy, and Jaffe, his SDR.
Another Penn Stater, man.
Another Penn Stater. Another classic slinger, by the way, which is why I love Jeremy.
Yes.
And he's sitting there hunched over his desk writing, and his SDR, Jaffe's writing next to him too. I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, we're sending 100 letters. And I was like, I fucking love that, dude. Like, it goes back to the do what doesn't scale is kind of the line you hear a lot. But I think like all of the automation has made actual human touch much more valuable these days. And I think even like with
what's old is new. It's like paradoxically.
The dark arts are back.
Yeah.
You know, if you took a guy from the 70s who like sold insurance really well, or like a guy from like, you know, a car salesman from the 50s, and you put him in a time machine and like brought him over to an AI company, I believe he'd do quite well.
It's it's funny, those same people when they had kids are like, you want the job? Stand out in front and hold your resume. Tell them you're not leaving. Yeah. And then now like TikTokers are making fun of like some of the Gen Z advice. But as it relates to sales, some of that old school stuff still does work. It's human psychology at the end of the day. Yeah. Tell us like just what are you trying to build at Avoca for those that are listening that are trying to do prep before their interview with you? What are you trying to build out? What are you don't like in interviews as we like have a couple minutes left and want to wrap up?
I mean, I'll end by saying like we talked about this a little bit the other day. I've had a thesis for a while dating back to when I was a rep, and a lot of my career was as a rep. I still see the world through the eyes of a rep, which I think helps me. I had a theory that like this thing of ours, to be a Jersey guy, this thing of ours could be done a different way. And I think like sales cultures are often fear driven. There's kind of this like, guillotine hanging over you at all times. Some of that is already ingrained in the position itself. You start at 0 every year, January 1st, or if you're monthly or quarterly, you start at 0 and you got to do it all over again. And if you don't, you're making half what people think you're making. And so that's already there. We don't need more of that. So my theory was always like, if you could run an org with accountability, but still like encouragement, support, like I got your back. I'm in the foxhole with you. I'm never going to yell at you. I'm never going to be like angry with you. We'll course correct if we need to. It puts a lot of pressure on hiring, which I will acknowledge. You have to hire well if you're going to have a culture like that, because I'm on some level loosening the controls and like trusting you to be, agentic on your own terms. And I think if you can hire well, that can be like an extremely lucrative org, because everybody's got, I'll pump up our team a little bit here. Like the vibe is electric at Avoca. Everybody loves each other. When someone makes a big sale, people are coming over their desk, dapping them up. Like that's what you want. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to build. And I think it's a little bit of an experiment, because if you talk to AEs, so there's a former place I worked, and I won't say which, and they got some new leaders coming in, and I was like talking to some of the reps, like, what do you think of the new guy? They're like, yeah, he's not an asshole. Like, I'm happy with it. He doesn't seem like a jerk. The bar is so low. Like most AEs are like, just as long as this dude doesn't really screw my day up and like make me hate my life, I'm happy. And I think that's pervasive in sales. I think there's just like kind of an issue with how we run the teams. So when you find a place that's actually supportive of you and your career and wants you to do well, I think it's like gold. And I've been at a couple of those too, and I'm just trying to recreate that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, can validate it. When we have candidates we send over, they say the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's awesome what you guys are building there.
Thank you.
Some final question. So Penn State Creamery, what's your go-to flavor? I'll start with mine. Mine's peanut butter swirl, vanilla base with a swirl of what tastes like real peanut butter that's going in and out of the, what's your favorite flavor there?
Yeah, I'm always a vanilla guy.
Okay.
My fiance gives some shit about that because we go to like fancy, cool like ice cream shops in New York, and I'm always like, I'll take vanilla. It's just
Van Loans, and it's like, you gotta get it.
It's tough to talk Penn State right now because we're like tough times. Can't find a coach.
I know. All roads lead back to Terry Lewis. It looks like. It looks like
Terry's got to pretend that he wanted this. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I kind of want him to go to Terry at this point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it looks like we can't find someone at the dance to dance with us.
Totally. It's tough. It's like we went to now there are people that we were the stalking horse to get them a better offer at their current jobs.
That's right. That's
like
right.
dang.
Yeah.
But Penn State's a good opportunity right now. I mean, you have Franklin was one of the best recruiters in the country.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of 4-star people that are on the team that hopefully don't transfer away. But
we'll see about that. It's going to be an interesting portal.
Yeah, dude, it was great chatting with you.
Thank you.
This is like a breath of fresh air with some of these takes.
Sure.
Thank you for disagreeing. I'm like thirsty for people to disagree with some of my. I put it in the ether of that's out there. And,
no, I think you do a great job.
A little bit.
I've already listened to the other episodes. I think this is going to be a great series. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And then I'm assuming people can find you on LinkedIn. I think what's the last minute? Somebody wants to get your attention. I don't know. Some sales leaders said like, oh, I like a Loom video, but like, have you thought of? Has anyone gotten creative with like their outreach?
Oh, sometimes I think like I'm pretty responsive, honestly. Like to go back to like respect for the AEs, like when people reach out to me on LinkedIn, I get back to them 90% of the time if they're not trying to sell me something.
Right.
And I know that sounds like I'm talking bad on my own profession. Just like if I'm not needing something, I'll give you like
totally.
quick,
like
not interested.
Yeah.
But like if someone like contacts me actually interested about working at Avoca, I will talk to them for sure.
If they cold call you, even better.
For sure. I'm silencing all unknown numbers. Might get through with a good voicemail.
Great chat with you.
Yeah,
Jack.
For sure.
I'm really pumped. Continue to work with you guys. And you're one of our first clients that's now, it's like media, recruiting, and then investing as well. And, we're even talking about hosting an event with y'all as you like scale up hiring efforts in 2026.
Yep.
So looking forward to that.
Me too. We love working with you guys, and thanks for what you've done for us.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you giving us a listen. Give us a subscribe, rating, review, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Hope you enjoy it.